Welcome. Can you hear me? My goodness. We are so delighted that you're here to join with us to celebrate the extraordinary life that is Professor Cornel West. This year marks an exciting moment in the history of African American studies at Princeton. 2 years ago, under the visionary leadership of President Tillman, Princeton decided to form the Center for African American Studies. So we're delighted that you're here with us, sharing with us in some significant way a celebration of the joyous example that is Professor Cornel West. I have the privilege of introducing the introducer. You know how that goes. But before I do so, we want to thank our partner here, WNYC. We're live streaming this event. And I don't know if Indira Twaro is here. There's Indira. Exactly. And we want to thank WNYC for their partnership, for their leadership, for joining us in this effort to bring African American studies not only to the Princeton community, but to the nation at large. Now I have the privilege to introduce Professor Imani Perry. Professor Perry is just joined us in the Center for African American Studies this fall from Rutgers, where she was a professor of law and the second law professor to ever receive the Board of Trustees Fellowship of Scholarly Excellence. She's taught as a visiting professor at the University of Penn Law School, Columbia University's Institute for Research in African American Studies, and the Georgetown Law Center. She received her PhD in American Civilization from Harvard University and her JD from Harvard Law School, her LLM from Georgetown Law School, and her BA from Yale. There are only a little more alphabets left, only a few. She's an interdisciplinary scholar of race and African American studies who writes in the areas of law, litigation, and legislation. She's a beacon light in cultural studies, literary and legal history, and a shining star in critical race theory. She's the author of the path-breaking book, Prophets of the Hood, Politics and Poetics in Hip-Hop, and the author of the forthcoming text, Righteous Hope, as well as over 20 scholarly articles. I should add, she's the editor of the Barnes & Noble's classic edition of the narrative of Sojourner Truth. She is truly a humanist scholar in the best sense of the word. But more importantly, in these dark and trying times, it's always special to encounter a human being who leaves a little light behind wherever she goes. I'd like to introduce you to Professor Imani Perry.
Thank you. It is my great honor to read excerpts from Brother West, Living and Loving Out Loud. I was a follower of Professor West for many years, long before he was even aware of it. Although I missed him at Yale, I got there 3 years too late. I worked at South End Press the summer after my freshman year of college and copy-edited the bibliography for Breaking Bread, which was probably the only time in my life I ever found copy editing thrilling. Then I followed Professor West to Harvard as a graduate student and have joined him now at Princeton, and that is truly a joy and a blessing. I considered having Cornel West as a professor an extraordinary gift, brilliant and dazzling, a prolific scholar with his head in the books and his heart in the hood, and vice versa. He was also a masterful educator. He challenged me to greater intellectual rigor, was not afraid to tell me when I was wrong, and maintained unfailing kindness through it all. What distinguished Professor West further was his consistent generosity towards everyone in the community, and for me personally, his encouragement of the work I did with low-income teenagers in Roxbury, work that some other professors viewed skeptically as it competed with my real purpose. Professor West taught so many of us that one's purposes as an intellect, a member of community, and a person of conscience should be in harmony. So I'm going to read a section from the beginning of the book, and then a section from the middle and one towards the end. Those were the years when I was called Little Ronnie. Ronald is my middle name, and for Little Ronnie, rage was perhaps the main ingredient. Like morning thunder, rage came early and reigned over the first part of my life. I'm not sure I can explain it entirely. Psychological theories won't do. I'm unable to name the cause of this restless anger that led to the violent behavior marking my childhood and troubling my parents to no end. Little Ronnie was, in short, a little gangster. When it came to confrontations of any kind, Little Ronnie was always up for big drama. Facing the most formidable opponent, he just wouldn't back down. As a little kid, his hands were sore from fighting. He'd take on kids older and meaner, and, more often than not, he'd prevail. What were his motives for such outlandish behavior? Hard to say. He certainly wasn't angry at his folks. Fact is, he adored them. Mom was a school teacher, a remarkably energetic woman with a rare gift for teaching young children to read. She would make her mark as a legendary educator. She taught first grade, became a principal, the first black person in both roles, and when she retired, so great was her contribution that the Irene B. West Elementary School was named in her honor. Mom was in perpetual motion, a woman of dynamic intelligence, grace, and dignity. She was a quiet storm of charitable work and extraordinary instruction. Because of her sensitivity for children, it's no surprise that her oldest son, Cliff, became a model student. You might assume the same for little Ronnie, whom she showered with endless love and affection. But I'm afraid you'd be wrong. Little Ronnie was out of control. Dad tried his best, and Dad, the sweetest and gentlest of men, was always cool. When he entered a room, his smile lit it up. He worked at McClellan Air Force Base for 36 years, buying and selling parts for fighter jets, and was the most popular guy on the base. He was a college grad and, as an active alpha, was also the most popular brother in his fraternity. Later, I too became an alpha man. Everyone loved Clifton L. West, Jr. Nothing flustered Dad, not even little Ronnie's rebellious antics. Like Lester Young, the poetical laid-back saxophonist who floated over the beat like an angel floating over fire, Dad never got flustered. Mom might call Dad during the day and tell him that little Ronnie had messed up again, gone after some kid in his class for God knows what reason. Mom would put me on the phone. "Little Ronnie," Dad would say, "when I get home, have the strap ready." He'd arrive home, cool as a cucumber, give Mom a kiss, "How you doing, baby?" and then turn to me. "Boy, when you ever gonna learn?" After the whipping, he'd hug me and say, "Hope this is the last one." Then we'd eat dinner, and he'd watch sports or his favorite shows like Bonanza or Gunsmoke. No, I wasn't rebelling against Mom, and I wasn't rebelling against Dad, who headed Shiloh's social outreach program and, along with the other fathers, like Mr. Peters in our neighborhood, created our little league and built our ballparks with their own hands. When it came to my parents, I harbored no anger. Then what was it? In second grade, our teacher was Miss Silver, a lovely woman who simply couldn't deal with so many bad Negroes. Little Ronnie was the baddest of the bad. "Where's your lunch?" kindly Miss Silver would ask my classmate Linda. "Mama forgot to pack it," Linda would answer. But I saw that every single day, Linda's mama forgot to pack her daughter a lunch. That was a funky situation. Shouldn't have been. Linda needed to eat. So when I saw Bernard strolling into the classroom, a boy as big as a barn with a lunch bag stuffed with goodies, I had to jump the brother. Beat him up and give some of his food to Linda. Drove poor Miss Silver crazy. Miss Silver, though, had it easy compared to Mrs. Yee. my teacher in the next year. I loved Mrs. Yee, but Mrs. Yee and I had the worst encounter of my childhood. Happened in 1962 when I was 9. "Students," said Mrs. Yee, "please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance." Everyone got up, except me. I didn't move. "Please rise, Cornell," she said. I still didn't move. "You heard me, Ronnie." I heard her, but I wasn't rising. Even at that age, I had issues with America. Most of my fights had to do with bullies beating on weaker kids. Yet Mrs. Yee wasn't a bully. She was a sweet woman who also happened to be pregnant. And she wasn't preying on the weak, but she was insisting that I pledge allegiance to a flag that stood for some things I didn't like. Her request stirred up ugly memories of racist treatment of my family in Jim Crow, Texas during the summers, and the piercing story of how my great-uncle was lynched and his broken body was left hanging, wrapped in the American flag. In my little boy's mind, I saw saluting the flag as an insult to my family and an imposition on my free will. If I didn't want to pledge allegiance to the flag, I didn't have to pledge allegiance to the flag. "You will pledge allegiance to the flag," she demanded, coming over to me and slapping my face. Something snapped inside me. Her slap stung, and just like that, I socked her in the arm, hard in the arm. She ran out of the room and came back with the principal. Principal had a paddle and went after me. My partners and I jumped the principal until he had to back off. No. It was practically a riot. The principal expelled me. Okay, this second excerpt follows Professor West's period of teaching at Yale in American Studies and the Divinity School, where he was also active in the movement to divest economic resources, university holdings in apartheid South Africa, and efforts among staff to organize a clerical union. After my fight with Yale, I returned to Union Theological Seminary, back with Brother Wash and the others. But after a few months, I received a call from the Sarah Vaughan of contemporary world literature, Toni Morrison. This is the greatest compliment I could pay anyone. To me, Sarah Vaughan is the height of artistic genius in 20th century culture. Anytime Sarah appeared in New York, I was there in the front row. Between sets, I was there in her dressing room, lighting her cigarettes with gentle reverence. "Are you sure you're not hurting your throat, Miss Vaughan?" "I'm fine, honey, thank you." Now I had to thank Toni Morrison for suggesting my next move. "Would you seriously consider coming with me to form an intellectual neighborhood in Princeton?" Toni asked. I was really planning on staying at Union, but when Sarah Vaughan, the Divine One, sings, you listen. I thought of Toni as a kind of divine vehicle beckoning me to pursue my calling at Princeton. Princeton had been my PhD stomping grounds. Princeton had embraced me early on. Princeton had a super bad faculty. And Princeton was just down the Jersey Turnpike from New York City, where I could hear all the jazz, lectures, Broadway plays, and Stephen Sondheim musicals. "I'll be there," I said. And this is from one of the sections towards the end of the book, Teachable Moments. "Reaching and teaching is my greatest joy as well, especially lighting a fire in the minds of young people. Every year at Princeton, I insist on teaching freshmen. I want to be part of their academic lives, knowing that connecting with them at an early juncture might move their stories in a positive direction. In my freshman seminar on the tragic, the comic, and the political, we read works such as Plato's Republic, Sophocles' Antigone, Dante's Inferno, Shakespeare's Hamlet, essays by Kant and Hume, fiction by Dostoevsky, Kafka, and Nathaniel West, and plays by Ibsen, Chekhov, Hansberry, Lorca, Williams, O'Neill, Soyinka, and Beckett. The course focuses on the never-ending activity of paideia, deep education, and the problem of evil. Freshmen begin with a sense of trepidation in the face of this formidable parade of texts. How does my freshman seminar in humanities differ from those of my colleagues? My lens as a bluesman is to begin with the catastrophic, the horrendous, the calamitous, and monstrous in life. So Plato's discussion of death that inaugurates the Republic, Hamlet's discussion of Yorick with the gravediggers in Shakespeare's classic play, or Gregor's transformation into a huge, foul vermin in Kafka's The Metamorphoses, initiates us into the traumatic coping with humando, with burial, death, and the worms waiting for us in the soil. In this way, the tragicomic sensibilities of a bluesman are an essential feature of the rich humanist tradition. Initially, students are quite shaken with this stress on the fragility of their lives and the inevitability of their own death. Yet as they examine these great texts and see the centrality of death and rebirth, of learning how to die and to learn how to live, they are initiated into paideia. I consider this a lifelong initiation in deep education, a priceless contribution to their lives and to my life as a teacher. In fact, my enthusiastic teaching itself at my beloved Princeton is a living testimony to the sheer transformative power of paideia. And without further ado, please join me in welcoming the class of 1943 university professor, Brother Cornel West.
Thank you so very much. What a blessing for me to be here. What a privilege and an honor. I want to thank each and every one of you for coming out. It's such a beautiful day in Princeton after 4 days of rain. I think it has something to do, actually, with the appearance of the young brothers who drove all the way from Raleigh, North Carolina. They just arrived. And what I would like to do before I actually get into my presentation is to have them come forward right now and give the creed of the Cornel West Academy for Excellence under the able leadership of my dear brother Antoine Medley. Give them a hand. Give the young brothers a hand. Come on, brother. Come on, brother. Just so beautiful. Beautiful in the deep sense, tied to goodness, right, and I would even say holiness. Can you hear me all right here? You did a magnificent job, you all. And we're going to be together November the 4th, right? We're going to be back down in John Coltrane country, North Carolina. Absolutely. Well, I want to begin by just saluting each and every one of you. You all know anytime you write a book, it is a collective affair, and I'm blessed to have the editorial genius and visionary leader of Smiley Books here. Her name is Cheryl Woodruff. Please give Cheryl a hand. Just raise your hand, Sister Cheryl. Raise your hand, Sister Cheryl. Thank you so very much. No, indeed, indeed. My dear brother David Ritz, who's a master when it comes to narrative and story, and Cheryl is a master when it comes to rigorous reflection and diffusion, made all the difference in the world. My dear brother Colby Hamilton, sitting right there in the second row next to Sister Carly, want to thank you as well. Give Brother Colby a hand. Thank you so very much, Brother Colby. He's the editor, worked very closely. Worked very closely as well. We had a tight team. My brother had worked very closely on this as well as Brother Tavis. And then there's one person it's hard to find the words for who not only worked with this text, but actually enables me to actually teach and write and lecture and in some ways endure. And I'm talking about my inimitable, marvelous assistant, Sister Mary Ann Rodriguez. No, indeed. No, it makes a difference. Makes a difference. Most of you all know I've never had a computer. I've never sent nor received an email in my life and have no plans to do that. I do not recommend that for my young brothers. Just like I don't want you hitting your teacher, and I don't want you jumping on the principal. You all know that, right? That's just a story in the book when I was out of control. But the only way you get to me is through Sister Mary Ann, and she does a magnificent job, and I'm blessed to be in Stanhope Hall. It is now the era of Glaude in the age of Obama. Here at Princeton, Valerie Smith did a marvelous job, but Eddie Glaude has just hit the ground running. He's come out of the blocks with tremendous vision, tremendous energy, tremendous courage. And I met him 20 years ago as a graduate student, and now he's my boss. I like that. I like that because we're looking at the future. He's part of the future. You all part of the future. So many younger folk part of the future. So I salute you, Brother Eddie. I salute you indeed. And your team, Sister Carla, Haley Penn, my God, Sister April Peters, so wonderful. No Leeway Rooks, Kyle Ladlow, Sister Jennifer Losey, who put this event together along with the help of others. We've got a hell of a team there in Stanhope, the third oldest building, but some of them newest energy on campus. And I could go on and on acknowledging persons. Thank you so much for the radio connection. I'm actually speaking to people in New York and Connecticut and Jersey and so forth. So from Princeton, we say hello. Indeed, Sister Terry Reed, of course, always playing such a crucial role there at Nassau Hall. And we have, of course, the finest director of, and I wouldn't call it just a playhouse. It's really an art center. She's a superb playwright herself, but she's directed McCarter Theater for 20 years. The one and only Sister Emily Mann. There she is right there. Give her a hand. Give her a hand. One and only. One and only. And I could go on and on. So many friends. But again, Antoine, I want to thank you, though, brother. Thank you so much. It's just a beautiful thing. When I think about my life, that I am who I am because somebody loved me. Somebody cared for me. Somebody targeted me. Somebody attended to me. When I think of who I am, I know that I am first and foremost my mama's child and my daddy's kid. Irene B. West, still alive, stronger than ever. Clifton Lincoln West, been gone 15 years, but he sits in the soul of all of his kids and all who knew him. And I wish each and every one of you could have met Irene and Cliff. Now, you still got a chance for Mom. Brother Jeff Stout, I see sitting there, Brother Eric as well. You all know what I'm talking about, my co-teachers and so on. that I will never be one half of the human being that my father was. And that's nothing but a gift. That's nothing but an act of grace. We're all born under circumstances not of our own choosing. And I found myself with wind behind my back with Clifton West himself, born in Tulsa, Oklahoma, well, grew up in Tulsa, Oklahoma. He was born in Louisiana. But his father, who was a great Black Baptist minister and pastor, Reverend C.L. West, Metropolitan Baptist Church for 42 years in Northeast Tulsa. And that Tulsa is a special place, you all know. I was born in Moton Hospital, the same place where the Gap Band was born. In that GAP, Greenwood, Archer, and Pine, that was the Black Wall Street. There was no more black wealth on that block than any other place in America. The riot of 1921 wiped it out, killed thousands of black folk, pushed out every black business. So Tulsa has a rich tradition. And so I'm proud to be from Tulsa. And Brother Charles Wilson. She's one of the few folks still making soul music. There goes my baby. Oh, that's a nice jam. Brother Lamine, I see you there. How you doing, my brother? Oh, indeed, indeed. So in other words, I come from a great tradition that begins with family. Begins with family. My brother Clifton West taught me how to read. So when he was in second grade, I was in second grade, but I was 3 years younger. Our aim in life early on was to be an athlete and be with the prettiest girls in the world. We had to get beyond that. But that happens when you're young, you know. Go to the parties in the garage and listening to the Dells and the Dramatics and the Whispers. The fundamental aim in life is to be able to slow dance long enough to make you feel good about yourself. I'm just being very honest here. That we're going to keep this real and funky today. But early on, he embraced me. So I don't know anything about sibling rivalry. It's alien to my existence. You see, it's alien to my existence. Same is true with my sisters, Cheryl and Cynthia. So in that sense, I was already tilted toward a kind of almost Panglossian cosmic optimism. Now, I think that's sentimental and childish, but that was the tilt early on. You see. But what you read about my sense of rebellion was very deep, my sense of rage. I don't know where it came from. I couldn't stand the fact that the weak were being always crushed and marginalized and dishonored and despised. I couldn't stand it at all. It was visceral. And so, in this age of Obama, where it's very difficult to be an angry black man, especially on your front porch, that I have the same rage now that I had then. It's just been channeled in positive ways. It's become a righteous indignation against injustice and a raw rage that devoured my soul and led me to drink from the cup of bitterness. But I'm the same angry Negro in that sense. And that's where Shiloh Baptist Church played a fundamental role. That I am who I am because of Reverend Willie P. Cook, who loved me so. And Deacon Hinton, who used to take me on the vanilla side of town. I was living on the chocolate side. To expose me to different realities. To my Sunday school teacher, Sarah Ray, who would raise deep issues of the problem of evil and reread the book of Job, wrestling with philosophical questions that have no theoretical resolution. Only like the conclusion of a practical Aristotelian syllogism, a way of life, action, praxis. What kind of human being are you going to be in the face of the sheer incongruity of supposedly a cosmic power of benevolence and all of these precious and priceless human beings catching hell? The wretched of the earth, in the language of Franz Fanon. You see, the power of love is one of the fundamental themes of this text. love of wisdom, love of justice, but beginning with love of mom and dad. So I believe initially in black love, Negro love. That's unpopular in the early part of the 21st century. But I love Negroes. I love black people. And it was that constituted the source of my spillover love. But it took a while to love folk in the vanilla suburbs. Jesus, grace, and a whole lot of other things had to kick in. We've been treated like hell. Lynchings and so forth in my family. But I embraced it at Shiloh Baptist Church, where I was told over and over again, yeah, we've got to deal with American terrorism, but we will never terrorize the folk who are terrorizing us. We won't get in the same gutter. Move and ascend to a higher moral and spiritual level. That's what Frederick Douglass was about when he said, we've been enslaved, but we don't want to enslave others. We want freedom for everybody. You can terrorize us under Jim and James Crow. We don't want to terrorize others. We want liberty for everybody. Now, I didn't know at that time what they were saying in part was, here I'm part of a people who've been terrorized, but decide not to form a black Al-Qaeda, but dish out Frederick Douglass, Martin Luther King Jr., Fannie Lou Hamer, Curtis Mayfield, Ray Charles, Aretha Franklin, and Luther Vandross. The power of love. Love is no plaything. Even in the halls of the academy, generosity is not something to play with. That's what I found out in the West family. So by the time I went to Harvard, the first thing I did was went to the Black Panther Party headquarters. It's true. First thing I did. Not because I wanted to join the party. They were secular and atheistic. I'm a Jesus-loving, free black man. But I could tell they loved poor people. I could tell they wanted the police. I could tell, like Brother Skip, arbitrary police power is a serious issue in any democracy. If you don't curtail arbitrary police power, then you don't have a democracy that's worth anything at all. You see. And by the time I left working in their breakfast program and in the prison program, I approached Harvard, Brother Tommy. I said, I want to be shaped in the best of the image of Harvard, but I'm going to shape Harvard in the best of the image of the West and Shiloh Baptist Church and black tradition of struggle, of love and justice. I got something to offer. But I've been trying to raise my voice in my own inadequate way in order to have a dialogue. I don't come to just be so thoroughly assimilated and so recast in such a way that I can't even recognize myself once I graduate and no longer have a deep, intimate connection with the very folk who produced me. See? So that was a question of trying to hold on to some sense of existential integrity and a connection to a tradition. Notion of piety, from Plato's Euthyphro all the way to Santayana's conception of a reverence for those sources of good in my life, my deep attachment and intimate connection with the things that have kept me going, beginning with mom and dad and my family, tied to Shiloh, tied to my faith, but also tied to the indescribable music. That I am sane to the degree I am, and I might snap tonight. It's all fragile and contingent. But if I do snap, it's going to be a nice time. It's going to be a wonderful day to snap, believe me. But if it were not for black music, that's why at the core of this text, the power of love and the power of paideia, in which music is fundamental. Be it James Cleveland singing about, Lord, help me to hold out. Be it Mahalia Jackson talking about keep your hand on the plow. It could be Brenda Hathaway singing Every Little Bit Hurts. It could be David Ruffin. Talk about my relationships. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about my marriages, but I'm open to questions. But just go home and listen to Eddie Kendricks tell her that love has felt the need to leave her. And you have a sense of the difficulty, of the power of love and the power of paideia that my dear sister Imani Perry read with such power. And we are so, so very blessed to have you here. Very much so. But that power of paideia, that again is something that you feel on the inside. It's like a fire inside of you that you want to share with other people, affect other people, touch their souls, unsettle their minds, unhouse who they are, so they're forced to raise questions about themselves that they might not have raised. That's why the philosophizer learned how to die when Montaigne's formulation sits at the center of this text. That I had to learn how to die in the sense that I had to come to terms with my own narrow assumptions and presuppositions, and when I let them go, there was a form of death for me to become more engaged, more mature, more developed, and it is endless, it is incessant. It has no fundamental moment of termination, you see. And so from the very beginning, from my mother's womb to the tomb, the power of love, power of paideia, trying to bear witness, a blues man in the life of the mind, in love with the life of the mind, and a jazz man in the world of ideas, in love with the world of ideas, but always connecting it to struggle for justice. Struggle for justice. Folks used to say justice is what love looks like in public. Justice is love that has legs as it spills over into the public square. But that love is still at the center of it all, you see. And it's connected to a joy. And this is one of the things I hope this book is able to convey, that myself as just a moment and an instant of a tradition that finds joy in life of the mind, joy in the world of ideas, but also joy in loving, joy in serving. And it's beyond any kind of describable pleasure. There's not a lot of talk about joy in late capitalist society. It's like not a lot of joy on Wall Street, even when they're doing well. It's just pleasure. Fleeting, empty, often forms of spiritual malnutrition. What I call moral constipation. They know what's right and good. They just can't get it out. They stuck. Morally constipated. They need the blues. The blues will give you a little ethical diarrhea, won't it? Just let it flow. Oh, I know what's right and good. See, my dear sister Janet Dickinson retiring, though. We salute you. Give her a hand. Give Sister Janet a hand. We salute you. We salute you, baby. Very much so. But after all those 40 years, you know what moral constipation can be sometimes. Absolutely. And all of us wrestle with it. High places, low places, middle places. The well-to-do have no monopoly on it. It's just when they're morally constipated, they have effects and consequences that are disproportionate, affecting the weak, the poor, the working classes, and so on. But in this book, I talk about the death shudder that I experienced up until I wrestled with cancer. That's one of the reasons why I began reading Kierkegaard incessantly, voraciously. And the death shudder is this uncanny sense of anxiety and dread owing to the radical fragility of life and inevitability of death. You see, I hit that when I was 5 years old. I'll never forget. Walking to my kindergarten class, trying to cross that bridge, and huge trucks and cars going by. And I began to conceive of what is it like not to be, i.e., get hit by that truck. Who am I going to be in the meantime? You see, I had blackouts all through my life because I've been on the move so much. You see, of course, graduated from Harvard in 3 years, majoring in Near Eastern language and literature with Hebrew, Aramaic, and the language that Jesus spoke, Aramaic, and Mesopotamian thought and Judaic thought. And then, of course, made my way here to Princeton. And my God, that was 36 years ago. I think Jeff and I must have met about that time, 36 years ago. It's a long time, you know. When I set foot in this place, I said to myself, it's the most beautiful campus I have ever seen. Harvard was magnificent, but the beauty of Princeton's campus was unbelievable. And the philosophy department was magnificent. Gregory Vlastos, and Paul Benacerraf, Carl Hempel, and Tom Nagel, and Tom Scanlon, and Richard Rorty, my dear mentor, and others, they embraced me so. Same kind of love in its own way at work. But I knew that I would never teach in the philosophy department, and I never have. I have great respect for philosophers. I have great respect for the discourse of philosophy. But in the etymological sense of philosophia, love of wisdom, it would take me in other places. Union Seminary, where my great hero, Reinhold Niebuhr, taught. And lo and behold, when I first accepted a job at Union, they ushered me to his office. They said, "This is your office, Brother West." I said, "No, I can't stay here." The spirit of Niebuhr, they said, "Yeah, you can." I stayed. It meant much to me, but the death shutters continued. And as I said, they wouldn't stop until a doctor would tell me at the age of 48 that you've only got a few months to live. You've got the most aggressive form of prostate cancer. It's in the last stage. I said, "You got to be kidding." They said, "What you been doing all this time? You haven't gone to the doctor?" "No, I've been feeling magnificent. I hadn't done anything athletic since I was 17, even though I was a great track star then." But I said, "Yeah, you're in deep trouble." I said, "Well, let me call my brother." And we talked, and I told him then, I said, "Well, maybe it is time for me to go. I've been invited to the banquet of life for these 48 years. I've had an abundance of blessings. I don't have any complaints at all. Time for me to make my move, make room for other folk." He said, "No, I think you better try to fight it." I said, "Oh, no, I'm going to fight it now." "Oh, yes, I'm going to fight it." Oh, indeed. It reminds me of the definition of religion by the great George Santayana, where he said, "Religion is the love of life and the consciousness of impotence." Those moments where you know you're powerless, you know you're helpless, and you're still loving life. You fight against the grain. All you have is just a faith, stepping out on nothing and maybe landing on something. That's what I did, Brother Peter Cardino and others. My dear sister Leslie recommended that I go see him. And here I am 8 years later, still going. I mean, it's unbelievable. It really is unbelievable. And many of us have these examples like it. It's unbelievable, really. Definitely. But I think for me, it has much to do with the fact that this vocation that I decided to pursue, owing to my encounters with Sinclair Drake at Stanford and my beloved mentor, Martin Kilson and Preston Williams at Harvard, meant that I would be faithful unto death, not just to the power of love I encountered at the West Family and Shiloh Baptist Church, but also to that sense of a calling. And when you're a blues man, it's very difficult to fit in the academy, or it's very difficult to fit in the reigning disciplinary division of knowledge, the way the disciplines are divided in the university and college. You see, because here I am trained in philosophy, Christian sensibility, political activist, which means you have to stay up on political theory, political science, or politics, read some economics, especially people like Brother Paul Krugman, who tend to tell the truth, given the narrowness of these neoliberal paradigms in economic theory. That's another lecture. But I just add that as a footnote, because he tilts the way I tilt, toward the weak, toward working people, toward poor people, gay brothers and lesbian sisters and indigenous peoples and orphan and elderly and children. That's the tilt. It's the very opposite of my dear brother Clarence Thomas. He tilts the other way. Tilts toward the strong. He's a beautiful black man. He's just wrong 98% of the time. But it's a choice that you make. It's a vocation. It's a calling that you have. So wherever you teach at Yale, it could be Union Seminary, it could be University of Paris, it could be Princeton. Wherever you teach, your calling is the same. I could be teaching at a community college. I would be doing the same thing, just more courses, less travel. It's one reason why I'm not going to a community college. But the calling is the same. And I want to end on this note, because for me, in some ways, it's the most important when you fuse the power of love and the power of paideia. Linking that life of the mind, the struggle for justice, always rooted in the best of your ability, a deep sense of love and compassion, or as the great W.H. Auden used to put it, trying to love your crooked neighbor with your crooked heart. It's the best that we do, but also means keeping track of the masses of people and their precious and priceless children of whatever color who are poor, who are locked into dilapidated housing and disgraceful school systems, levels of unemployment and underemployment, depression like during recoveries. You see, so easy to forget them. You see, it has everything to do with what a blues man or woman has to do, which is to find their voice. If this book is about anything, it is about a tradition of a blues people. And Ralph Ellison is right. The blues is an autobiographical chronicle of a personal catastrophe expressed lyrically. You're responding to catastrophe. You're responding to the calamitous. But you're refusing to succumb to revenge, bigotry, hatred, or a fear that accents the worst in you. It's a fundamental choice you have to make in life and try to sustain it. You see. And the anthem of a blues people is what? Lift every voice. Lift every voice. I take that very seriously. Lift every voice. And it's so easy in our society to be echoes rather than voices. And it's not lift every echo. It's lift every voice. And the most difficult thing to do is to find your voice. Who you are, distinctively you. No one like you. There used to be a brother that played organ in my church named Sylvester. We knew him for the genius that he was. His name was Sly Stone. He wrote a song called Everybody Is a Star. And by star, he didn't mean celebrity in the spectacle under the lights. That's not a star. That's not what Sly was talking about. Everybody is a star to the degree to which they muster the courage to examine the dark corners of their own soul, to transform their echo into a voice, because that voice will never be lifted, elevated, or heard unless you get it out. And this story is about how I tried to find my voice with these various influences, different streams and strands running through my heart, mind, soul, and body. And sometimes dancing till 2 o'clock in the morning made a contribution. Sometimes reading in Firestone, night after night, from Schopenhauer to Hume to Kafka to Beckett to my own beloved Chekhov, made a difference. Sometimes just being silent, just sitting there and thinking, wrestling with the issues, you see. That's what Brother West is about. The subtitle actually comes from a towering white brother. He's a Jewish brother from Minnesota. He's one of the great blues artists of our time. He was born Robert Zimmerman, but he's known to the world as, somebody tell me, Bob Dylan. I've never met him, but he had a drummer. He has a drummer named Winston who ran up to me in the airport one day. I've got a story in the book. See, Brother West, I've wanted to meet two people in my life, Frederick Douglass and you, but it doesn't look like I'm going to meet the first one, so you're the only one left. I said, that's fine with me, brother. He said, Bob Dylan and I, we talk about you all the time, and he says what he loves about you is that Cornel West is somebody who lives his life out loud. I said, I've never heard it put that way. He's my fellow blues man. So when it came to the subtitle, we talked about it. We say, yeah, we living and loving out loud. Then the challenge becomes, well, what are you going to put? What picture are you going to put on the cover? How can you project that sense of having joy in living and joy in loving? And thank God was blessed right here at Princeton. Rockefeller took pictures. In the cover of the book, you'll see the smile of somebody who is full of joy in being alive and trying to love. Eyes, lips, nose, even my fro is kicking in. My fro is happy, you know what I mean? And yet, given that smile like the blues man, it in no way hides and conceals all the suffering and the misery that the calling is all about. Thank you all so very much. We'll have time for questions and comments. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Definitely. Thank you very much. You're very kind. We have a good time. Sister Jen here has a microphone. Please don't hesitate. Any questions you have here?
Do you
Stand up, my dear brother.
do you know if there's anybody else that
Take your time, though, brother.
if there's anybody else who thought
Anybody else who? Say what?
if anybody else thought smaller people were and people who were bigger were being mean to them?
Oh, I can't fully hear it. Don't you hear it? I couldn't hear it. You said anybody else who?
Smaller.
Smart?
Smaller.
Smaller. Oh, you mean like the size of yourself? Yeah, but you are, my brother. Oh, was getting bullied. Oh, was there anybody else when I was small who was small but bullying other big people?
No.
Whoa. Yeah. He said what?
It's
The other way around with the bullies? Oh, I see. Yeah, no. See, I didn't have that problem because I took care of the bullies pretty easily. But what I would do, my dear brother, is you never want to allow a bully to push you around. You let the bully know you stand up or you come back with some friends. You come back with some friends and say, look, they love me. Now, you never want to hate the bully because the bully's just going through a stage. They can change. See what I mean? Like me. See, I was a bully now. And I still, like I said, got gangster proclivities, but I've got control now. So I'm moving in the positive direction. But you get your partners together. You get some friends together. And just tell them to quit. You tell them to quit because you're too precious to be bullied like that. Yes. That looks like my dear sister Miriam. How you doing?
Good.
Good to see you.
Since you've attended Princeton as a student and now again as a professor, have you noticed a lot of progress? Are you happy with, I'm sure you are because we love Princeton, but like what advances have you noticed since you've been here as a student?
Well, I appreciate that question too. I mean, one is that it was my dear brother Harold Shapiro, then president, who brought me in. And it was because of Ruth Simmons, who was then in Nassau Hall working with Brother Harold Shapiro, who facilitated my coming. And that was 1988. That's been 21 years now. In 21 years, I've seen Princeton transform from a first-rate institution of higher learning to the preeminent center for higher learning. And I say that to Cambridge, straight to Harvard and Yale. because they are magnificent places. They really are. But relative to numbers, because we have no law school, no business school, no medical school, there's no place like Princeton. And that's because of leadership, Shirley Tillman, unbelievable leadership. That's because of high quality faculty, staff, everyday workers who keep the place going. The place couldn't function without them. But most importantly, students like you, Sister Mary. The students make it great. And I'm not saying that just for booster purposes, because when students begin to decline, I will say that. The quality's going down. That's not the case. I have seen it with my own eyes. I've taught at Yale, at Harvard, at Princeton, at Union, and many other places too, Haverford, Williams, and so on and so forth. And those are magnificent places. But there's something about the quality, commitment, and the intensity of Princeton students. I think the challenge, of course, of Princeton students is always not to be too parochial in one's social life. But that's another lecture, as you can imagine. That's always a challenge, because Princeton is such an idyllic village rather than a cosmopolitan center like University of Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, cosmopolitan, Harvard Square, trying to be cosmopolitan. But Princeton's a village. We got Nassau Street and Prospect. That's about it. So that's a challenge, but it's the students that make it great, tied to the faculty and the others. And I'm just, I'm blessed to be here. Absolutely, have a great time.
Hi, my name is Casey. I'm a senior across the street at Princeton Seminary. And you mentioned that you were drawn to Union because of Reinhold Niebuhr. If you could explain a little bit about that and what drove you back to a non-religious academic institution.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. Reinhold Niebuhr for me represented in some ways what my grandfather, Reverend Willie P. Cook, Martin King, Fannie Lou Hamer, and others, prophetic Christian witness, prophetic Christian thought. And though he did, of course, tilt toward the establishment after about 1948 or so, became very much incorporated into the mainstream, that early Reinhold Niebuhr still excites me in a number of different ways. And so there's a sense in which Union Seminary to this day still expresses at the institutional level my own identity. Christian, intellectual engagement, New York City, close to Harlem, blues sensibility, and so on. In fact, I taught a course at Union last spring with Serene Jones and Gary Dorian, trying, in fact, to kind of help bring it back to life, as it were. But it was that telephone call that Professor Perry read. When Toni Morrison calls, I come running. That's just kind of Negro I am. She calls, I come running. And she said, former intellectual neighborhood, if she had been just she and I, that's enough. That's enough. And she is that kind of friend, comrade, mentor, counselor for me all these years. And when I was blessed to go with her to when she received the Nobel Prize in literature, we had the time of our lives. A whole little group of us were able to go, you see, as part of that same sense of community. So when I arrived at Princeton in 1988, I had never taught one day in a secular institution of higher learning. I'd been to seminary, Yale Divinity School, Union Theological Seminary. You see, so it was a new kind of experience, and it's been a wonderful one. But I still try to keep my own voice, my own style, my own vibe, my own sensibility, even as I learn from my sophisticated colleagues and so on. But good luck in graduating seminary this year. Princeton Seminary is a great place too.
Good afternoon. My name is Brian Grates. Currently, I attend Mercer County Community College.
Well, just a little louder, though, brother.
Currently, I attend Mercer County Community College.
Yes.
With plans to transfer in January to Liberty University in Lynchburg, Virginia. My question is, I remember you saying lift every voice, and I haven't had the opportunity to read your book yet, but I wanted to ask you, amongst all the voices that were lifted, how were you able to identify yours?
Identify my voice?
Yes.
Oh, that's a good question. Actually, I'm still trying to fully find it. because it's a perennial process, you know. I really am. It's a stage-by-stage kind of thing. I remember I used to talk to Sarah Vaughan all the time, and one of the distinctive features of Sarah Vaughan, like Miles Davis, is that they continue to grow in their 40s and 50s the way many people grow in their teens and 20s. You see, if you can keep that arc of growth, the arc of maturation, the arc of challenge in your 40s and 50s in the way in which you get in your teens and 20s, you're going to be in the stratosphere. And Sarah was like that. And she did it by challenging herself, doing things that she didn't think she could do, believing in herself enough, respecting herself enough, and most importantly, being in conversation with the great voices of the dead. Which is to say, you know, for her it was, you know, some of the great singers. It was going all the way back, and also not just popular, but also classical. You know, she had a close relationship with Maria Callas, for example. They used to do voice lessons together because even the operatic singers knew she had the finest voice instrument of their day. So they would go to her, and she, of course, would learn from them. So she's continually growing. That's what I try to do. That's one reason why I like to spend so much time with young people, because the older folk get jaded and weary and start running out of gas on you. Sister Angela, so good to see you. The young sister, you want to stay with the young folk because they come in with tremendous vivacity and vitality and energy and raising questions that you hadn't thought about before. They haven't read all the text you've read, but so what? They still have a different angle of vision. That's very important. That's very important. Now, there will come a time when, you know, you just run out of gas, though. Very much so. But see, I've always thought that, you know, when they put me in the coffin, I want every inch of my body to be so thoroughly used that it's time to go anyway. You know what I mean? You just push it to the edge, you know. But that's what I think having a calling is all about. It's like Coltrane playing 18 hours, go to bed with a horn in his mouth and wake up blowing. I mean, Alice just died, the great Alice. I've got a picture of Alice and myself in my book because I was blessed to go to one of her last concerts in Newark. And they asked her just 6 months before she died, what do you think John, your husband, would be doing if he alive right now? She said, practicing. She didn't miss a beat. Didn't miss a beat. How come? He's still trying to find his voice. Coltrane trying to find his voice? If anybody had many voices, Coltrane did. No, I'm still trying to work it out. Now, if he's trying to do that, you know, I got a whole lot of work to do. At 56. Now, he died at 40. He died the same age as Franz Kafka. Kafka found his voice, many voices. Another towering blues man on the Jewish side of town in Prague, Jew-hating Europe, dealing with catastrophic blues sensibility, tragic comic orientation, you see. 40, he's gone. Coltrane, 40, gone. We can go across the board. Gershwin, 39, 38, gone. Another brother found his voice over against James P. Johnson, over against U.B. Blake, Jewish brother, connected with the chocolate side of town. Porgy and Bess, the greatest classic opera we have in the culture. Never sees 40. Did he ever find his voice? Yes, but he was always looking for more. Here's a Rhapsody in Blue. Here's Rhapsody in Blue 2. I thought you had one. No, I got another. George Gershwin, please. These are the voices that you forever want to be a part of and be connected to, listening to. Because finding a voice is not just expressing, it's also listening and practicing. Right? It's a process, yeah.
Okay. Hi. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Hello,
Yeah.
Dr. West.
How are you doing today?
I'm well. This is Daphne Brooks here.
And that's Daphne.
Yeah.
Yes. How you doing? The distinguished Professor Daphne.
Stop it.
What a blessing.
I want to thank you for modeling a kind of intellectual generosity and pedagogical bravery that I thought was really beautifully laid out by Professor Perry, and I think especially that last question about voice was wonderful to kind of think through what it's meant to watch the past two inaugurations of your book releases have other voices read your voice. So Dr. Glad last year, Professor Perry. Right. So that's really lovely. Here's the question that I have for you. Could you tell us what writing a memoir has done for you intellectually. What is the greatest intellectual discovery that you made about yourself as a scholar in writing a memoir, as opposed to another beautifully dense, elegant philosophical tract that has transformed the academy, or a mainstream trade book that has then transformed that dense discourse into something that people can pass around in barbershops and beauty salons and on the corner? What does it mean to do a memoir? What kind of intellectual work does it do for yourself and for all of us? What can we do in the classroom with it? And then just to add on, if you could talk a little bit about that process of collaborating with the great David Ritz on putting this book together.
Yes.
That would be great to hear from you. Thank
you.
you.
Those are two magnificent questions. Vintage Professor Daphne Brooks. always on the cutting edge. Well, first, for me, it made me acknowledge the degree to which I am much more than I ever would have thought a Shiloh Baptist kind of brother. That when it comes down to what really, really, really matters in my life, my Christian faith has been the glue that has constituted this broken body, this cracked vessel, as it has moved through space and time. That was very interesting because there was a wonderful sister, Rosemary Cohen, wrote a book about me about 10 years ago, I think it was. And she said, Professor West, your Christian faith is really the core, and all of your talk about pragmatism and checkoff and so forth and so on, those are ancillary. And I said, no, that's not true at all. That's not true at all. No. And checkoff's at the center, and so is pragmatism, and Jesus is always there, but I don't need to talk about it. It's just there. And as I began to think about all of my catastrophic moments and the shaping of who I am, there's a certain kind of honesty I had to acknowledge, you see. Now, what does that mean? Well, intellectually, it means that so much of my conversation and my dialogue with others, which has been radically secular, because I spend so much time around Marxists, anarchists, secular liberals, atheistic peace activists, and they're all my comrades. Each one of them my comrades. You see. But my Christian faith was always there, but it was not explicit. Because there's not a whole lot of progressive Christians when we get arrested against the Iraq War in 2004. I'm in jail with a whole lot of atheist, agnostic comrades. So we have some religious discussions because we're in there for a while. But that doesn't surface. So in the book, that came through, including, of course, what really, really matters, which is family. This is why I started off saying, the ultimate Negro, my mother. The co-ultimate Negro, my father. So I begin with Negroosity. That's who I am. You see. And I'm not ashamed of it. Because people don't want to talk about being a Negro these days. In the age of Obama's a non-Negro black man, isn't he? I love my dear brother, but he's not a Negro. He's a brilliant, charismatic black man. Beloved white mother, brilliant African father, no Negroosity in his history. He marries a brilliant Negro woman from Princeton. Yeah. Oh, yeah. We love Michelle and Barack at that level, because I'm critical of that brother on a lot of different issues. That economic team he has is a disgrace. But the thing is that I had to recognize, well, that's the source of my own strength. And the same is true with the music. That I had to be honest about what really sustained me in those moments, and I just talked about a few. I mean, after Race Matters, for example, when folks used to show up with shotguns in my driveway, put a gun to the lady, my wife's head with a mask, looking for me to shoot me dead. I showed up in Utah. They got to read the newspaper. West is already dead. My mother's already been told. I don't like that kind of stuff. I'm upset. Living under threat of death every day. How do you sustain yourself? With a smile. Keep the love flowing. And that's what came out more explicitly in the book. Now, intellectually, it's going to be interesting for me to kind of work that out. I really haven't worked it out in terms of my subsequent works in that regard. I've still got to write this wonderful book for Princeton Press. That might be manifest in some ways in that text, the Toni Morrison lectures that I'm eager to finish, you see. Your second question had to do, though, with, what was that? Oh, yeah, with Brother David. Yeah, we had such a you all know David Rich has written classics, Marvin Gaye and B.B. King and Aretha Franklin and Smokey Robinson, the Neville Brothers, Etta James. Pardon? Yes, Jerry Wexler, absolutely. Absolutely. And it goes on and on, Lang Lang and so forth and so on. And the process was wonderful because, as I said, he has a way of being able to capture voice. It's a kind of fusion in part, but capture voice, but also keep the narrative line moving quickly. Because my life is very much about speed. It's on the move, very much like a blues man in that regard. You see. But I needed Sister Cheryl, though, for the reflective and those deep moments of contemplation. Because a lot of times David Ritz gets moving in his narrative, and he doesn't have time for the kind of reflection. I think that fusion made the book so much better. But you would agree, Sister Cheryl? Yeah. I think this brother had a question.
Check. 1, 2. Yeah, Richard Skelly from the Low Budget Blues Program at WRSU at Rutgers in New Brunswick.
Oh, wonderful.
Been doing the radio show for 28 years.
Fantastic.
And I was just wondering, Danny Goldberg put out that spoken word record with you for Artemis Records a number of years ago in the 90s. And then there's a new jazz trumpeter, Terrence Blanchard, who also went to Rutgers. You're on his recording. Right. So, you have some plans, hopefully, to make some recordings, perhaps a la spoken word jazz, spoken word blues, a la, like what Amiri Baraka has done,
No, I appreciate that question, though, brother. But you're absolutely right that brother, what was the dear brother who did the first CD? You just mentioned his name, though. Brother Danny Goldberg. Yeah, he was so kind. He did Sketch My Culture 2001 with my brother and others. Then we did Street Knowledge in 2005. That was a double CD. That should have been a bestseller, but it collapsed quickly. But we bounced back, we'll never forget. And that was with Prince, Talib Kweli, Rod Digger, Black Thought, Outkast, Jill Scott, Lenny Williams, the late great Gerald Levert. And that is still out. That was 2001. That went number 37 on the Rhythm and Blues Billboard chart. No, that was not Artemis. That's Hidden Beach. That's Steve McKeever. That's Hidden Beach. That's Jill Scott's label, you see. Absolutely. That's 2000. And that's still going. That's still going. In fact, I've done not performances. I'm not really a rapper, but I've done some presentations for that. But you're right. What we were able to do with Terrence Blanchard was just magnificent. Oh, Choices is the name of that CD. It just came out. It's just unbelievable. But I've just done a song with John Mellencamp. We did something together. Who else was it? Who else? Mariana? Is it Mellencamp? Oh, Raheem Devon. Oh, I did a deep record, Raheem Devon. In fact, I think I peaked maybe, at least for this moment. On that record, it just hasn't been released yet. I did a record with Rhymefest. And then there's a new group called the Cornell West Theory. Second Rome is a new CD. We actually performed in live on 11th Street 2 weeks ago in Washington, D.C. It's not my group, but they named the group after me. They're a progressive, prophetic Christian hip-hop group. They were awarded the what they call the WASHI, which is the award for the best hip-hop group in Washington, D.C. And they just came out with a CD. I'm on there about 16 times. But it's not my group, but I work with them in that sense. But whether I'd have my own album, I think if I actually had my own album, it'd probably be a mix of old school with the dramatics, the whispers, the stylistics, the main ingredient, Jones Girls, emotions. That would be something to go beyond P. Diddy's mixes. Get some real serious old school. Get Brother Tommy to help me out. We had another question. Yeah, brother. Yes.
Do you remember what it was like to jump the principal in?
Lord. From the words of a child, you hear the truth. Well, remember I told you, though, brother, that was wrong, though, right? You realize how wrong I was? Absolutely. And it was a very intense moment. An intense moment means I was out of control. Definitely. Now, you asked me how I really felt when I did it. I want you to understand this answer real good, though, brother. It felt good when I did it because I felt that I was defending people I love, my family. But it was wrong now, right? You understand it's wrong. But I felt good because I was defending my family. I was thinking about my uncle. You remember what she read about my uncle? Who was lynched hanging from a tree with the flag around his body. So I had to defend him. And if nobody in the whole world would defend him, I was still going to defend him. See? And so that's what I was feeling when I made that jump. Now, I was wrong to do it. But I tell you this, anytime you love somebody and you defend them because you love them so, makes you feel good. That's a beautiful thing. You understand what I'm saying? So you're going to keep loving? You're going to keep defending people you love? Standing up for justice? Oh, brother, you ready. You ready. All right.
Again, we'd like to thank you for joining us in the celebration of the extraordinary life of Dr. Cornel West. Books, signed copies are available right outside the door by Labyrinth Bookstore. We welcome you to purchase a copy. We also want to invite you back to join us in what we're doing in the Center for African American Studies. There's so many activities going on, but on November 12th at 4:30, in McCormick Hall, room 101, we have a hot event on reggaeton that we would love for you to come and join us. Also, next semester, just check our website. We're launching a new website at the end of October. But next semester, on March 9th, we're delighted to announce that the James Baldwin Lecturer will be not only President Shirley Tillman. So we would welcome you to join us in that special occasion. Thank you again, and thank you, Professor West, for being who you are. Thank you. And if you get a chance, say thank you to Jennifer Losi, Carla Haley Penn, Noliwe Rooks, and the staff of African American Studies.